Is this the biggest leap forward in these little Chinese Class D amplifiers to become somewhat of a true audiophile component? Well, sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about the Fosi Audio V3. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. The more subscribers I get and the more products I get sent in, the more sponsorship deals I get. So it really helps out the channel. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and like this video. This is the first product that I know of from, I don't know, Chinese manufacturing. When I say Chinese manufacturing, I'm talking about Duke, I'm talking about Fosi Audio, I'm talking about Aima, I'm talking about Nobe Sound. Kind of the very affordable $60, $70, $80 amps. The 130 integrated amps with tubes, ST01 Pro, T9, T9 Pro, all that stuff. I'm talking about those type of companies. I feel like they're a bit of a step below Topping and SMSL. I think Topping's really good at speaker amps. I think SMSL is really good at affordable DACs. But those guys are all trying to go upmarket, more expensive. Or Fosi Audio, Aima, Duke, they are kind of staking their claim in the very affordable amplifier space. This is the V3. It's the first product I've ever heard of from a Chinese manufacturer that was crowdfunded. I think they had an Indiegogo or GoFundMe or something. Because this is a little bit different. It's not a copy and paste of another amp design and just saying, hey, we're going to do this cheaper, faster. This is an attempt at making a true audiophile component that is extremely affordable. This thing comes in at $90, but I do have a $12 off coupon. In pure transparency, Fosi Audio has sponsored the channel and will be sponsoring the channel. However, today's video is not sponsored by Fosi Audio, so this is a review. You may be saying, how is he going to be unbiased? It'd be a lot harder to make this video if this amp wasn't darn near perfect. So the funny thing is that they crowdfunded this product, but the price, the retail price is still only $90. This is more reminiscent of something like the Aima A07. It is simply a volume control, 1 RCA in. It's a speaker amp, and that's it. But instead of using common parts, Fosi Audio used Japanese ELNA capacitors, German WEMA capacitors, and they reworked the ventilation on this. As you can see, there's ventilation on top and ventilation on bottom. You can also change out the op amps, but you have to be a little bit careful. This one is not as easy to get into as some of the other products that I've had before, where you just pop off a couple of screws and pull the whole thing out after you pull off the volume knob. A little nut and washer you have to take off. On this one, there's 2 screws on the bottom and 2 screws on the back. And I never quite got this thing all the way out. I kind of was able to slide it out a little bit, and I would have had access to the op amps had I wanted to roll them. This is based on a 3255 amp chipset, which you're probably getting sick of hearing about it if you know anything about these amps. The reason people keep using this chipset is because A, it sounds incredible, but B, it has the capability of running a lot of power, of producing a lot of power, depending upon what type of power source you have attached to it. This one comes stock with a 32 volt 5 amp power supply. So you have better components, better ventilation, and better construction. I try not to get excited about volume knobs, but this one is very good. It is all metal. It's a very nice volume knob. Not only is it a nice volume knob, it's a very nice pot. There is one single LED on front, and the way you turn it on is you rotate the pot, just like that. Let's talk about power. There's always huge power claims about these amps. I think this one claims to be 300 watts per channel, something along those lines. But that depends upon what type of power supply you have, and it's also probably at 10% total harmonic distortion. So with the power supply out of the box, the power ratings are as follows. With the 32 volt 5 amp power supply at 4 ohms, the rated power is 100 watts and 125 watts max power. Again, I'm not sure if that's 10%, 1%, 0.1%. At 8 ohms, it's rated at 50 watts continuous, 65 watts max power. Again, not sure if that's 0.11, 10% total harmonic distortion. However, 50 watts, even at 10%, means that you're probably getting 40 watts at 0.1%. Even in the worst case scenario with the 32 volt 5 amp power supply, is going to produce usable power. With a 48 volt 10 amp power supply, this is rated at 4 ohms at 280 watts per channel. 300 watts per channel max. At 8 ohms, it's rated at 140 watts continuous, 150 watts max. I'm going to ask Fosi Audio because we have seen many of these 3255 amp chipsets. What we haven't seen though is a 48 volt 10 amp power supply that's widely available and of good quality. I'm going to ask Fosi Audio to produce one of these power supplies so that we have the option to get these high power ratings, because AIMA made one and there is a about 1,000 hertz, which is noisy as heck. Speaking of noise, let's talk about some specs. Now, these are their stated specifications, so I have not put this on a bench myself because I don't have that type of equipment, but I'm sure this is going to make it to a variety of outlets that have an APX machine. They'll be able to put it on their machine, they'll be able to see how it tests, and then they'll tell you whether it's good or whether it's not. That's not how I do things. I imagine this is probably going to measure very well. Reportedly has a signal to noise ratio of greater than 110 dB, less than 0.003% THD, and a dynamic range of greater than 110 dB. On their Amazon listing, they compare this to their own Fosi Audio TB10D, which uses the same amp chipset. THD on the TB10D, it's an acronym soup, 0.3% on the TB10D, 0.003% on the new V3, so a lot quieter. However, does it sound better? So there are no tone controls on this. So if you don't like the way it sounds, you're gonna have to adjust things through an EQ. I compared this directly to the Fosi Audio TB Cheapers BT20A Pro. It's the latest edition. Same chipset, same form factor, just about same all the way around, except this one has better parts. And it does not have Bluetooth, and does not have tone controls. Quieter, cleaner, bigger soundstage, less veiled through the mid-range, more precise imaging. This one though sounds like it has more bass. Now that could be tone controls. Maybe this one's not quite lined up properly or something like that. I could get the tonality to be similar to the V3 using the tone controls, and what I had to do was back off the bass just a little bit. I put this on a switcher. I had 2 Weems going into both, which I had them linked, playing the same thing. I had them fixed at 2 volts output. So the only thing I was changing was the volume on the front. I level matched these the best I could. I know if there's even slight differences in level matching though, that people can think there's big differences in the sound. Did I have it matched up perfectly? Probably not. I did it by hand, I did it by ear. I did use a little decibel meter on my phone, and it wasn't huge stark contrasts. But if you've been in this hobby for a while and you have speakers that have the ability to resolve or give you clarity, then you will hear a difference with the V3. The V3 is a better amplifier than the BT20A if you're looking for clarity and cleanliness. This one has tone controls. Actually, I think the BT20A is probably going to be the better choice for people that have really fatiguing speakers. And also, the V3 is so transparent to the source that if you have a bad source, you're probably going to want the BT20A, because this is going to calm down a very exciting DAC, or one that has a little bit of harshness on top. So if you have a super cheap DAC, with maybe the exception of the SU1 from SMSL, because that's actually an awesome cheap DAC, if you have a super cheap DAC that's not very good, probably want to get the BT20A. This reminds me of something like the Rotel A11. This reminds me of some of the higher end Yamahas that I've had in. AS801. This is a no kidding, legit audiophile grade amplifier. And I don't say that if you don't have this, you don't have an audiophile grade amplifier. I'm just saying this is a very good product. And at $78, it is crazy. It, however, is not going to be for everyone. What are my final thoughts? Policy of Truth, the 2-minute 20-second to 2-minute 30-second mark. That's a cool song. If you haven't listened to that song for a while and you're a product, well, it doesn't matter how old you are. It's a great song. But if you're a product of the 80s and 90s, you have heard that song before. But you probably never heard that song through a good stereo, unless you like Depeche Mode and you've been listening to a lot of Depeche Mode and you have a decent system. When I listened to it through the BT20A Pro, incredible. I'm like, man, this is tough. Is the V3 really better than this? Then I switched it over to the V3, and everything in that section was definitively defined within the soundstage. I had a couple of DACs hooked up to this. I started out listening to the Skit Sin, and I mistakenly called it the Sis in the last video. So this has been running home theater duty for the last 2 weeks. And then I needed to switch it out to a DAC that was the same DAC going into the BT20A Pro, so that I had an apples to apples comparison. So the only 2 DACs that I had that could actually produce music at the same time were a pair of Weem Pros. So I put those on, I connected them together, so they were playing the same song at the same time. I had both of these hooked up to the speaker switcher, so the only thing I had to do was level match them and then press a button. Boop, 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 boop. Because they're playing the same music through the same hardware at the same time. I was using the same DAC, and the DAC in the Weem Pro isn't that great. So this can scale even higher with a better DAC. Uninvited, Alanis Morissette, MTV Unplugged. The BT20A actually handled the sibilance in that song a little bit better. But there's a reason. This is a little bit veiled. This is a little bit muddied up. There's not as much detail retrieval. But I can almost guarantee that the V3, by my ear, has a much lower noise floor, which in my experience gives one better instrument separation, definition, micro details in the music, better spatial cues with soundstage, placement, more of a 3-dimensional presentation. This one is like a wall of sound, but it's still good. This one you're getting into being within the sound. And the V3 is actually cheaper than the BT20A. When I said this is not going to be for everyone though, this is a very simple device. So if you're using this, and it also has a preamp out so you can hook up a subwoofer, if you're using this as basically the core of your system, it's going to have to be within arm's reach. So I'm thinking desktop system. You, however, can use this in something like the use case scenario that I was using, where I had a preamp feeding this thing in the form of the Skit Sin. You could also get something like the Saga. You could also get something like a DAC that has a remote control and control volume that way. For me personally, this is kind of the ultimate measuring stick for any amplifiers under $100. Frankly, I wish I had the PA5 from Topping, and I would like to compare that directly to the V3 from Fosi Audio. I may even buy one. I'm going to see if I can get one in, because that thing sounded amazing, but there are some quality control issues. Will there be any quality control issues with the V3? I don't know. If you're going to get one of these, which I would recommend you do, because I think this is the best amplifier under $100. I think this is the best amplifier under $200. Now, you're not going to get the same type of features that you're going to get with some of these integrated style amplifiers. This is probably the best amp under $300, but I need to get that PA5 from Topping, because that's the one that's kind of held the crown at that certain price point. This is absolutely an amazing amplifier. Ships and sold through Amazon. I will link all of the different Amazon sellers like Amazon UK, Amazon Canada, Amazon US. I'll put all those links in the description. If you're interested in the amp, buy it. Put it through its paces. Compare it to your other products. Compare it to your other affordable products. This is a giant leap forward in affordable amps. I can't say enough about it. The build quality is exceptional. It's very simple, but it's exceptional. Much better than the BT28, much better than the A07, A07 Pro, any of that. I wish they would charge $10 extra or $5 extra and given us better binding posts, because this is the only part of this amp that feels kind of cheap. I thought it was going to be good. I didn't know it was going to be this good. This is legit kind of along the lines of like a Burson Audio, that topping PA5. $12 off coupon, $78. Complete no-brainer. Complete no-brainer. Complete no-brainer. Buy it. If you don't like it, return it within the return window. Put it through its paces. See if it's any good. But I'm getting 2 more of these. They're going to be running everything off of my Sin in the living room. Getting another one of these for the office because this is going to be my new reference amplifier under $100. Also going to talk to Fosi about producing their own 48 volt 10 amp power supply, or at least a 48.5. I'm hyping it up. I'm hyping it up because I'm making that sweet, sweet affiliate money on the back end. Fosi Audio's backing up the money truck and dumping money into my driveway. I'm just kidding. That's what some people say. Absolutely fantastic. There'll be affiliate links in the description. However, you don't need to use those affiliate links. And if you don't want to buy this, you can support me just by shopping on Amazon. You can also support me by signing up for Patreon. You can also support me by buying me a cup of coffee. Down at the bottom of the video, there's a thanks button. Put some money in the tip jar. But don't feel compelled to give me any money. You can sign up for Amazon Music, Tidal, or Rune. Links in the description. Click sign up. You get a free trial. Even if you quit, I get a couple of dollars. So, don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu unless it's Stranger Things, which I've been watching with my daughter. It's incredible. Get a Fosi Audio V3 and prepare to be completely shocked and surprised. I think you're going to be the most shocked and surprised if you have some high-end gear and you start comparing it to this thing. It's amazing. This reminds me also of the Emotiva A1 monoblocks. It reminds me of the XPA Gen 2 that can't put out as much power though, but the sonic characteristic, very similar. Really, 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 really pleased that this exists. So, go check this thing out. It's amazing. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.